Hello everyone, welcome back to 360 Anything Goes, episode 8 today. I know it has been quite a while since I have been back with an episode of Anything Goes. I want to say possibly either late November or maybe early December of 2023 was the last episode, and took quite a long break, but finally back with a new episode. On today's episode, gonna be talking about the Big Bang Theory. This is actually an episode of Anything Goes I have been wanting to do for a while now, but I just haven't got around to it. Finally doing it today. Gonna talk about Big Bang. But first, just in case we have any new listeners, or if for some reason you haven't heard an episode of Anything Goes, this is the only non-pro wrestling podcast, a part of 360 Wrestling Podcasts, besides 360 Wrestling Fanatic and Good Morning Wrestling Fans. And like the name of the podcast says, anything goes. Whatever I want to talk about on a certain episode, I'm just going to talk about it. Whether if it's a TV show I like, whether it's a movie I like, or just whatever pops into my head. For example, have talked about some movies like Elf, The Grinch with Jim Carrey, Remember the Titans, have talked about episodes of The Simpsons, Full House, The Three Stooges, and even had a couple of just what I called Anything Goes episodes of 360 Anything Goes, where I pretty much just talk about whatever is on my mind at the time. So now that I am back with a new episode, finally, I do hope to keep coming out with new episodes every Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern is when the new episodes drop. So fingers crossed, hopefully we'll keep going. And now on to today's episode, The Big Bang Theory. It is an American television sitcom, of course, created by, I hope I say these names right, Chuck Lorre and Bill Prady. Sorry if I'm saying his name wrong. And they were also executive producers and head writers on the show as well, along with Stephen Morlaro. It aired on CBS from September 24th, 2007 to May 16th, 2019, and it went 12 seasons and had a total of 279 episodes. And the main cast had Johnny Galecki as Leonard Hofstadter, Jim Parsons as Sheldon Cooper, one of my favorite characters on the show, Kaylee Coco as Penny, Simon Helberg as Howard Wolowitz. You had, again, sorry if I say the name wrong, Kunal Nair, I hope I'm saying that right, as Rajesh Kutharpali. Mayim Bleak as Amy Farrah Fowler. Melissa Roch, maybe, as Bernadette Ranzarowski, then ended up being Wolowitz after her and Howard got married. And then we had Sarah Gilbert have a few guest spots as Leslie Winkle, and also Kevin Sussman as the comic book store owner Stuart. And I don't see her name when I'm looking at right now, but the voice of Howard's mother, who unfortunately passed away while the show was still on the air, and they did have a very nice tribute to Mrs. Wolowitz. And the theme song of the show was by the Bare Naked Ladies. So I just first want to start off with talking about how I was introduced to the Big Bang Theory. Also, in the future, I would like to try to talk about one episode in general, but as of right now, I'm going to be just talking about the series, kind of like an introduction. And then, like I said, maybe one day might do an episode of Anything Goes where I talk about just one episode on its own. But back to what I was saying, how I got introduced to it. I saw the commercials on CBS, and at first it didn't really have my interest, and then the CW started showing reruns, which was the home of WWE SmackDown at the time, so I would see the commercials. And then I want to say here in Detroit, CW 50, it would air at 7 p.m. and then again at 10 p.m. that same day. So finally, one night after SmackDown was over, I believe, I left it on Channel 50 while the Big Bang Theory came on, and I got to watching it, and actually I ended up enjoying it. I don't remember what the first episode I watched, which one it was, but after that I kind of started watching it a little more, and after a little bit I did eventually take kind of a break from it and stop watching for a while. But then TBS also shows reruns of The Big Bang Theory, and Wednesday nights AEW Dynamite. Of course, gotta mention wrestling somehow. I already mentioned SmackDown and Dynamite. A lot of times it would be on Wednesday night where I'd just turn it on TBS just a little early to be prepared for Dynamite, and I would see the tail end of the whichever episode was on, and like after maybe a few weeks or so, after seeing the end of episodes before Dynamite, it kind of got my interest again, because some of the episodes that would air were from the time where I wasn't watching, so it kind of got my interest back into it. And finally, I just started tuning into TBS even earlier, started watching the reruns, and on other nights too. So now pretty much 5 nights a week, I'm watching BBT on TBS. And like I said, it did help that I was watching Dynamite on TBS, which kind of got my interest back in the show. So, for some of my favorite characters on the show, I'm sure a lot of people would say Sheldon Cooper is their favorite character, and he is definitely one of mine as well. I think he is a very funny character. Didn't mean to play that sound. There we go. Thank you to the 360 studio audience right there. Played the wrong sound. Sorry about that. But yes, Sheldon is a very funny character. Big fan of. And just one thing that I kind of wish that would kind of help relate to the character more. And I know the whole thing of the show into science fiction, comic books, and stuff like that. I was thinking to myself one time, instead of the whole comic book nerd thing, is if they were more pro wrestling nerds, of course, like myself, a wrestling nerd, not really into comic books, not really into sci-fi, even though I am a fan of the show. But definitely Sheldon, one of my favorite characters. And another one of my favorite characters on the show, I'd have to say, is Raj. Of course, Raj Koothrappali. I think he is very funny, and the way the character grew during the show. In the beginning, he couldn't talk to women, and then eventually he learned where he could talk to women when he was drinking alcohol. And then in later seasons, he eventually did start talking to women without drinking any alcohol. So there was definitely a growth in the character. Definitely advanced. And Leonard Hofstadter, good character. I don't know if I would say he is one of my favorite characters, but like the character, no problem with him. But I do like the friendship of Leonard and Sheldon as roommates. And also, I didn't realize at first is that he was on Roseanne back in the day. I mean, I may have only seen a couple episodes of Roseanne. That's about it. Definitely would not consider myself a fan, but he was on there. And also Lisa Gilbert, who played Leslie Winkle on The Big Bang Theory, was on Roseanne. And speaking of people I didn't recognize right away, is Mealy Blake. I hope I'm saying her name right. But even when I was watching the show and I saw the character Amy Farrah Fowler, I did not recognize her, that she was Blossom back in the day. And I wouldn't really say that I was a big fan, but I do remember that my sister used to watch Blossom back then when it was on, when it was real popular with her and Joey Lawrence. And also the character of Howard Wolowitz, probably one of the more sillier characters on the show. And I was talking about Raj and his character growth. And his character grew when he got involved with Bernadette, and then they would eventually get married and have 2 children. And he even went into space, which those are some pretty good episodes while he is in space, working on a space toilet, I believe. And Bernadette, very good character as well. I do like the character. And now I want to say she's on the new Night Court show that is on NBC. And actually, not too long ago, Raj was a guest star on that new Night Court. And also we have Stuart that owns the comic book store, and Kripke, who is one of Sheldon's, I guess you could say, enemies. It definitely does not get along with very well at all. And there has been quite a few guest appearances by Will Wheaton, who played Leslie Crusher on one of the Star Treks. Was it Next Generation? And not a Star Trek fan. So the only reason that I do know that is because of The Big Bang Theory. Like the first one, Raj gets Sheldon to sign up to play in a card tournament with him at the comic book store. And at first, Sheldon doesn't want to do it. And what convinces him to do it is when he finds out that Will Wheaton will be playing in the tournament as well. And the reason he has such a grudge against Will Wheaton is because when he was younger, he was going to one of the Star Trek conventions. He rode on a bus and broke his own rule about relieving himself on a moving vehicle. And then when they are playing the game, something of Kaha, I apologize for not remembering the name of the game, but they're playing the game, and then finally Sheldon brings up the reason he wants his revenge on Will Wheaton, and Will tells him that the reason he had to miss that convention is just because his grandma just died and he had to go to the funeral. But I do remember this part. Sheldon felt sorry for him, thought about his Meemaw, and he played the card known as Enchanted Bunny, allowing Will Wheaton and Stewart to beat him and Raj in the tournament. And then Will lets Sheldon know that his grandma is actually alive. And he even mocks Sheldon by calling him Moon Pie. Of course, that's the nickname that Sheldon's Meemaw calls him. And Will Wheaton would appear in more episodes, and then eventually him and Sheldon did end up becoming friends. And in one, Will even gets him a signed action figure of his character Wesley Crusher. And there's another actor in this episode. I apologize to anyone who is listening that might be a Star Trek fan, but I don't remember the guy's name. And he ends up coming up and he takes the action figure and just rips the package open, ruining it. And that earns him a spot on Sheldon's enemy list. Also, when Sheldon and Amy got married, Will Wheaton was supposed to officiate it, but then Howard ended up getting Mark Hamill, of course, from Star Wars, Luke Skywalker, to officiate the wedding. And that's a very good episode as well. Also, another guest star, quite a few appearances, was the legendary Bob Newhart, who played Professor Proton, which was a science show that Sheldon watched when he was a kid, which I thought Bob Newhart did a great job as that character. And then the character did pass away, but then he would end up coming back in Sheldon's dreams as kind of like his Obi-Wan Kenobi, I believe, is what Sheldon called him. And also, another guest star, only one time though, but I really like this episode when Sheldon is trying to start his own comic book convention, and then he goes to a sushi restaurant, I believe, and he runs into James Earl Jones, of course the voice of Darth Vader, and at one point they even sing karaoke together. Thought that was very funny. And there's even an appearance in that episode by Carrie Fisher. To go back to character growth, Sheldon, who ended up getting involved in a relationship with Amy Farrah Fowler, I definitely like in some of the later episodes when their relationship grows and progresses, and then they get married. Of course, Leonard and Penny also get married as well. But I definitely like how Sheldon and Amy, their relationship progressed. And, of course, the knock. Who doesn't love that? Penny. I hope you were able to hear that. That's actually one of my favorite parts of the show, actually. And, of course, eventually got turned into a spin-off, Young Sheldon, which I have watched. Definitely haven't seen every episode though, but I think it's pretty good. I don't know if I would say it's actually good as The Big Bang Theory, but I know that next season will be its last, I believe, and I have seen some things online where they are going to have the death of Sheldon's father, which on The Big Bang Theory, of course, has been talked about, and another guest character quite a few times was Sheldon's mother, who is, of course, more featured on Young Sheldon. And another good thing about Young Sheldon is that we got to see the character of Meemaw and his sister Missy and his brother Georgie, which, like I said, Young Sheldon, really good show. Not quite as good as The Big Bang Theory. And now you can watch, like I said, The Big Bang Theory. I know here locally, if you're here in Michigan, comes on Channel 50 here in Detroit. Like I said earlier, TBS on Wednesday nights just before AEW Dynamite, and other nights too, but also you can watch every episode on Max as well as Young Sheldon. And I know some of the seasons, not sure if all of them are, but of course are available on DVD as well. So if you want to, I know a lot of people don't buy DVDs anymore with streaming and everything, but maybe if you're old school, you want to do the blast from the past, you can go out, buy the DVD. And so overall, The Big Bang Theory, like I said, I do continue to watch the reruns on TBS. And that will do it for episode 18 of 360 Anything Goes. And I apologize if I made a mistake in the beginning, if I said episode 8 instead of 18. This is episode 18. So I apologize if I made that mistake at the beginning. And like I said, I do plan on being back with new episodes of Anything Goes. And definitely plan on keeping the regular time slot Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Hopefully every week there will be a new episode, starting with this one. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to keep listening to 360 Wrestling Fanatic, especially coming up this weekend, starting with Saturday. We have WWE King and Queen of the Ring. And then Sunday night, AEW Double or Nothing. Saturday and Sunday night, definitely plan on doing shows about both of those. Also, the episode of AEW Collision from Saturday night. And every morning, listen to Good Morning Wrestling Fans as I walk to work and talk pro wrestling with everyone. You can also go back on wherever you listen to your podcasts at on the feeds and listen to the past episodes of 360 Anything Goes. And hope you keep listening. Hope everyone enjoys these. But just a reminder that the most important thing here on 360 Wrestling Podcast, the first and most important thing will always be pro wrestling. Just want to make that clear that the top priority here at 360 Wrestling Podcast will always be pro wrestling. And hope everyone enjoyed this episode. For as far as next week goes, I do have something planned, but I don't want to say what that is just yet, just in case something comes up and things get changed. But I do have something planned. And I will talk to you all next time right here on 360 Anything Goes.